Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here again for another episode of So Chatty, episode number 147 for July the 4th, 2024. Happy 4th of July, Independence Day to all the American subscribers out there. So let's get right into what I've been working on. And even though it is not Halloween for quite a while, and where did I put it? Okay, I had it here a second ago. Here we go. Okay, so I got my haunted scene wall hanging all done. It's an in the hoop project. I'm a little pissed off with myself on this one because it's hard to see in this picture, but there's one part that bends in a little bit because I discovered that if you use no-show mesh in one of these and you hit it with steam, it shrinks and it just pulls everything up like a big ball. And actually, I knew that before I did this from a previous experiment, I guess we could call it. And I have a happy trigger finger on my iron where I push for my steam, and I'm so used to using it. And I was being very careful not to. And then I gave it just a short little blast, and it puckered it in. And I got some of it out, but it's a little warped. It looks a little better. It's not as noticeable now as it is in this picture. But anyways, I got the whole thing done. There was no way that you can repair that without basically taking this sucker apart.
This is good to know because I've been using it on my bags and I think I'm going to stop using it on my bags.
Yeah, if you hit it with steam, yep. I should have used, and the thing was I used no-show mesh and I didn't really need to. I could have just used a tearaway stabilizer because this is never going to go in a washing machine. And it's not going to be, worn or anything. It's not going to get dirty. So I didn't need that. And actually, I just realized this is not the picture I want to show you. That's the picture before I got it backed and bound as well. And that's somewhere. I don't know where. But anyways, I think I showed it earlier this week on the Idiot Quilter. So if you didn't see Idiot Quilter, you can go back if you're interested and see that. But anyways, I am now part of not an experiment. I'm testing another wall hanging that a person is doing. I don't know how much information I can give on this, so I'm being very evasive right now. But they basically have taken a quilting pattern that's an applique pattern, and it is being digitized so we can do it in the hoop. And this person wanted to have several different machines test it to see that it'll work with everybody's. So I'm doing the Janome test on it. And I think when it's done, it's going to be quite cute. And it is a Halloween theme. But right now, I can't tell you anything more about it. I have to just keep you on the hook for that. So that's what I've been working on. And today I played around with Lucey. I did quilt a quilt this week, another secret project, which is my own pattern, but I cannot reveal it because it cannot be revealed until I actually teach it. And that's not going to happen until next spring. So sorry about that. But I also have a couple other quilts I want to get quilted and I want to do custom on them. So I was playing around with a blank sandwich kind of a thing on Lucey. And yeah, I think I'll be able to do it okay. I was trying to figure out how to do border treatments using Quilt Path, which is the computerized program for the long arm. And I learned a few things. Like there is actually an easy way to do it, but I had to watch some videos and things like that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about something else that happened with Lucey and involved Walter and me and that shortly. But in the meantime, so what have you been working on?
I was trying to do a shirt last week.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a problem with one of the sleeves, so I recut the sleeve out.
Oh,
because by the time I actually should have left well enough alone. I had two small tucks in the sleeve, and then you know how you get really uptight about having not a perfect sleeve, right?
Well, I don't because I don't do shirts.
Well, anyway, so I got uptight about it, so I pulled it back out, and then wouldn't you know it, I sewed it about 3 more times, and by that time I stretched the sleeve all out of shape. And I said, oh, okay, I should have left well enough alone.
So would you say you were being, oh, what's the word? An idiot?
Yeah. So anyway, so I haven't, because I got ticked off at it, I haven't really done anything
Oh,
else with it. I did cut the sleeve out, and I have to get to it and sew it up.
yeah, get her done. Get
And
her done.
then let me see. That's really the only sewing thing that I did. I was looking at your new pattern.
Yes, and you did find a few things yet.
Yeah.
But that was why I had you look at the new pattern.
Well, so far I've got about part way through, and I've run into a couple of things.
Okay, well, good, because I want to know this so I can correct those things and then I'll send it off to Stephanie to proofread.
Yeah.
And the goal here is to have a pattern that is as close to perfect as you can write it.
Well, maybe part of my problem is the fact is that I don't usually do quilts, so I'm looking at it from a novice's
And that's
perspective.
why I gave it to you, because I
Okay.
figured if you understood it or you made changes to it that you understood, then, other people, it's better to go that way. You can't make any assumptions when you're writing a pattern. You have to assume that a person looking at your pattern, this is all the guidance they're going to have. They're a rank beginner, and that's the
Yeah,
way I feel about writing
I think
patterns.
you have to have more instructions than not enough. I mean, you
Yeah.
don't need so many that it boggles their mind.
Well, you don't need to tell them your life story in a
No,
pattern.
I
And
know.
there are some that do. There are some
I
that do.
really hate patterns that aren't precise. They don't give you the exact cutting instructions, or um, they don't explain it step by step with associated pictures type of thing.
Yeah. Well, they turn around and they say like, make 12 half square triangles, assuming you know what a half square triangle is. Well, I do. And most people who have been quilting for a while would definitely know what that is, but you can't assume that those are the people that are buying or getting your or working with your pattern. You have
Or,
to assume it's somebody who's brand new to quilting.
or if there's a certain technique or something like that that you want somebody to do, then you may have to show how to do it.
Yeah.
Like some shirts do flat felled seams. Some people may not know how to do flat felled seams, so they should have a little instruction on how to do that,
Mm-hmm.
or at least give you some indication as to where you can go to look to do it. Or like there's somebody that wrote a pattern once with a shirt, and you usually have a single notch on your shirt sleeve for the front of the shirt and a double notch for the back. Well, the person that did the pattern didn't put the notches in, and said her response to one of her testers was, well, they should know how to put that sleeve in.
Well,
They should
no.
know which side is the front, which is the back. Quite honest with you, I wouldn't know which one's the front. I've done lots of shirts, and I don't know which one's the front, which one's the back without those two notches in it, three notches in it. So, so that's kind of assumptions that you really have to make that somebody's a novice for
Yeah.
each project.
Well, the thing is, when you write a pattern, that's why you need to have somebody else's eyes look at it, because your brain will fill in the blanks when you do things like that. I used to tell the kids at school when to get somebody else to proofread what they had written, because you won't see a word or something you've left out, even if it's a small little word. If you've left that out, it's still wrong. It has to be there. And so if somebody else's eyes see it, they will recognize when you've left something out, whereas your brain won't. It'll fill in the blank because you know it too well. So yeah, so that's the
And
whole
plus,
point.
if you just write a whole pile of words with nothing, trying to explain what you're doing, uh, and it's not really in steps or something like that, then you may get people lost.
Well, yeah, and I try to write my pattern. I hope you're finding this. I try to number each part and I break it down into the smallest component steps and don't put too many things into one instruction at a time. Yes, it's a bit tedious when you're writing it, and it could be a little bit overwhelming for somebody who looks at it and says, "Oh my God, there's 20 steps to this part." But once they get into it, they realize, okay, this is why. An advanced or an experienced quilter will be able to fly through those steps, but a novice, they need those. And when I get a pattern, and that's how the pattern is written, I check off each step when I've done it. So I know, okay, I've got that part done. I've got that part done. So that's what I'm trying to do in this particular pattern that I write. Well, in any pattern that I write. So, but I still need to have extra pairs of eyes looking at it. So we'll see what you've come up with, and then I'll
Yeah,
say you're
I'm
crazy.
about halfway through, and then
Yeah.
we'll
Well, fine. You're
we can
analyzing it.
start with
You're
all of the things that I've
pick one. That's the suggestion. Okay. Yeah, whatever. Um, okay, anything else? Well, we had a guy here today who was cleaning out our eave troughs for us and everything. And Walter has a new friend because he spent more time talking to the guy
well,
than,
I was kind of talking to her, so I was like,
yeah, like for an hour out when we were supposed to be doing this.
okay, fine.
Because it's now late on Friday for this. This is why any of you that have been timing it will notice this is coming out a little later today. Because I still have to compile it when we get it done. But anyways, so yeah, I was playing with Lucey most of today. Walter was playing with Nirmo, with the gutter guy.
Well,
So
I'm glad he's cleaned it all out for us, and maybe I won't be so hesitant to hire somebody if I know somebody who
yeah,
can come.
well, he was, I guess, reasonable. We had
Yeah, it
nothing to
was. I'm
prepare for.
happy with paying what we paid and he fixed one of the gutters a bit too.
Yeah,
So
well, that's good. So we have nice clean gutters. Our gutters are cleaned out. Nothing worse than having a plugged up gutter. Okay, so announcements. Sewing with Stephanie and Stephen Wednesdays. Be there, be square. Pop-up sew day coming up, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, July the 13th, starting at 8 a.m., running until about 5 p.m. in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. Zoom links will be in the show notes next week, and those of you on the mailing list will get your own private invitation on Monday for that as well. And it's my birthday, so it is a birthday bash, and yes, I am giving out gifts. Well, we'll have draws for prizes for Amazon gift certificates. I'm still trying to figure out, and I can't remember how I did it the last time, how I randomly selected people. I found an app that works with Zoom that is not really meant for random selection, but what it does is it creates an attendance list of people that are there, and then it sends it to you as a delimited file so that you can just call it up on a spreadsheet kind of a thing. So I don't know how this is going to work, and you can do it throughout. It'll update itself on it. So I kind of installed it, the free version of it. It's good for 10 meetings, and after that you have to pay for it. Well, I don't know, but it's either that or I count the squares, like Hollywood squares. I have a. It may have been how I did it last time. I can't remember. It must have been. I had a random number generator, and I put in the number of people that were there, and then it came up and said number six, and I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that would be the person. That may be what I'm doing. So I don't know yet. Um, and what else? Yeah, that's what's coming up. Can't think of anything else coming up that's related to quilting and sewing. So that means we're doing part 5 of Walter Does Lucey. But before we do that, I discovered something interesting. I taught Walter the wrong way to put a quilt on the long arm. Well, it's not the wrong way, but it's not probably the best way. And I had been taught the proper way by Tracy at Whirls N Swirls back when I first got my Lucey. She's an APQS authorized dealer, service technician, the whole bit, runs a long arm shop and everything like that. And I was having this problem. Those of you with long arms may understand what I'm about to talk about. Basically, as you advance your quilt, it rolls up on one of the rollers, and that's underneath the needle arm. And you have only so much height space for that. And as your roll gets bigger, it gets a little closer to bumping into your needle head. Now, I've had that problem a few times, and I don't know why. Other times I never had the problem, but of course, it also depends on how long your quilt is. A short quilt, you're not going to have any problem with, but a really long quilt, like 80 inches plus or more, you could have this problem. So I was trying to figure out what I was doing wrong. And anyways, Tracy had a on her YouTube channel called Whirls N Swirls. She has all kinds of videos about doing long arm quilting, and she had one about called easy loading onto your long arm. I had seen that before, but I thought I'm just going to look at this and see what she's doing because I must be doing something wrong. Yeah, I was. And to me it's hard to explain to you what that error is if I
It's a slight difference,
it's
isn't it?
slight difference in loading it, but it does make a difference on how big your roll gets. But that really isn't the main problem either. She showed me how to get around it. You set a safe area. It's an area that the quilt quilts in, and it won't go beyond that barrier when you're setting things up. Well, it automatically, you put in how wide and how long your quilt is, and it does the calculations, and then you set the safe area up, and it goes to 100% of that area. It doesn't take into consideration that as you're working on your quilt and you're rolling it, it's going to get bigger and bigger. So it always goes back to that 100%, and it sets the head, the needle, too close to the pickup bar at that point. She showed me what to do and what she suggested. She said to drop that size from 100% down to about 90%. Or even, she says she sometimes goes as low as 80, depending. So it doesn't go up to the very top and cause that problem. So I was playing around with that today to see if that works, and it does. With it. But that's not something APQS in any of their manuals, and they don't have any manuals. Well, they do, sort of, but it's written by this one lady, and she sucks with it. But anyways, so yeah, and then we went down to see Tracy yesterday. I needed some bobbins and things, and we got talking about all this, and she showed me right there, and I took a little video of what to do. So, she's great. For that. That's Tracy at Whirls N Swirls in Oshawa. If you're in the area and you're looking for a long arm, I strongly suggest you go and see Tracy because she will do you right about that. But anyway, so I think I have that problem figured out. So maybe next week I will actually take one of the quilts I want to custom quilt and do that. But in the meantime, Walter learned the wrong way. And
I can't remember anyway, so.
well, yeah, it's surprising you can develop bad habits. And I got the bad habits from watching YouTube videos because she also was talking about how she keeps a quilt, puts it on so it's straight. And I had seen a video some time ago. She taught me the right way. I saw this video, said, oh yeah, well, sew a line, use your horizontal channel locks and sew a horizontal line across the top of the batting and the backing, and then take your top of your quilt and line it up with that and then baste it down, which makes perfectly good sense. Except the top of your quilt is probably your border. Borders, the further away from the center of the quilt you go, the more chance of wonky sashing and borders you can have. It may not be a lot, but it can be a little out of alignment. If you're using that as your guide, even though you've put down this long line of sewing to match it up to, it can still be a little wonky. She said you should figure out the straightness of your quilt from one of your inside seams. Like say you have a couple of borders, go to the most inner border, put your needle up to the edge of the seam line on that border, set your channel lock, and then drag your machine down. You're not sewing, you're just dragging your machine down, and you watch it. And if the quilt sort of creeps up or down, you massage it a little bit, pull it here, pull it there. You don't have to do much to it, and that'll keep it straight. And then you go ahead and do your basting at the top across when you've got that, and that will keep things
Yeah,
straight.
if you recall, I remember her doing that.
Yep. But I remember her doing it too, but I thought she was going across the very outside line of it. I forgot about the other, and because I was using this other method, all this other stuff went out of my head. So it's probably a very good thing, even if you use your long arm a lot. Maybe sometimes we need to review things because you can develop bad habits. And I had, and then I passed that habit on to Walter, but he's already forgot it, so it doesn't matter. Be a blank slate. So, anyways, this is our last part of Walter Does Lucy. And so we'll put that video clip in here right now. Okay, what we just did was we moved the quilt up to its new position to finish this off. But here's what our problem is. Now, we have this whole bottom part that we will have to base the sides, but we have to base the bottom part too. Now, the quilt, we got this on here pretty straight with it. But what I like to do before I base the bottom, well, first of all, we're going to base the sides. So we're going to do that the way you usually do it. But before we do that, we need to place the pattern. Hello?
Yeah.
Place the pattern. So leave it there, hit the green box. Okay, it is placed. All right, now the carriage is released. So now you can move it over to the far side to base down the sides. You don't need pins.
Okay. Should I base the...
No, you shouldn't.
Okay.
And I'll explain why. Now again, this is my method of doing stuff, okay? From experience. Some people say, oh, you should base the bottom first. But what I find is if I base the bottom first, then I have more chance of a pucker up here. So just keep it flattened out. We'll worry about these sections later. Just make sure that one, you can have it.
So,
pull up your bobbin thread. I'm going to move around you. These all hands.
okay.
Okay. And have you got both?
How come it's over there?
Because that's where you just basted it. That's where you just pulled up your bobbin thread.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're fine. Okay, go ahead. I'll hold your thread. Okay, go off the quilt. Okay, now stop your machine. Button. Okay. Move over to your right a bit. Okay, hold your thread. Drop your needle. Bring your needle up. Move your arm. Pull it up. There's your scissors. Okay. Now move your whole head over to the other side and do the same thing on the other side. Yeah, not that head. Yeah, what a comedian. Okay, now get your quilt in position. Looks like your batting is a bit...
Is it not tight enough, or...?
These could be a little tighter. So just give your clamps a little bit more. Okay, well, this fabric's a bitch. It is so slippery. Okay, that's probably good. Okay. Now you don't want to pull too much down on here or you're going to distort.
Yeah, I know.
So
It's already a little distorted there.
yeah, okay. Do you want me to give it a try?
Well, wait a minute.
What?
Well,
That's a seam.
Oh, yeah, it is.
That's a seam on the other.
Yeah, yeah.
I have no idea what I just shot here because I keep moving the camera when I'm talking to you. Yeah, well, that's good. Just as long as you don't get a pucker. here's a trick that might help. Take the camera and shove it down here.
Hang on. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Because this is a little bit, there is some distortion here. Okay, a little bit. Can't be helped. But just to help you to keep that flatter, I'm just giving it a little tug down here. And I'm going to put in a pin. So that should make it a little bit easier for you to baste that down. Okay, now just, you're not going to pull up your thread, just go over to the side a little bit, away from the quilt. Okay, stop, not that far over. Come back so you're just down here about 1/8 of an inch from the bottom of this. Wait here, stop. Okay, don't touch anything, okay? What we're going to do now, or what you're going to do, is you're going to take these pins and you're going to, this will help you hold this. Actually, yeah, just stop it. This actually, I don't think we'll need to pin. I think you'll be able to base this, just like you did the top on the very at first. Now, you just smooth this out. Okay, I'm going to hold my camera, and I'm going to put a few little pins in this. I'm going to start in the center. I'm going to put them up far enough away from the needle so I won't run over them. And I'm trying to even it out. I'm trying to keep down ripples. And I'm kind of doing it, I'm spacing these apart at first just to kind of ease my fabric into place. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Ouch. Don't bleed on the quilt. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to baste. Now you can choose which side you want to start from. It's whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, if I wanted to pull the fabric, should I start from that side? Or
yeah, probably, because there seems to be some extra in here. That's a little better. Yeah, start up at that end, and let me get these out of the way. Don't run over a needle. I think I've got them.
Should I cut the thread?
Yes. Oh, okay, but pull up the bobbin. And then, yeah. And the scissors, of course, are down at the far end. So just be mindful of these. Take your time and flatten it down with your right hand as you come across. It's looking pretty good though. I've had some that I've had some real problems with when I get to this part. Did you pull up your bobbin thread?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
It's over here. So.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry about that. I'm just going to move around to the other side of you.
It's more of a hindrance that this pin's in here.
Watch your hands. Well, you can pull them out just before you get to them too, if you think it's going to be a problem. Be very mindful of your fingers. You're scaring me.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, until the needle goes through your finger. Don't blame me. You get blood on your quilt. You'll have to spit on it. Well, I wouldn't worry about that. Well, okay, we'll fix that. Okay, pull up your bobbin thread. Bring your, yep, move, drop the, pull your, grab your thread. Drop the needle.
Thanks.
No, no, okay. Pull. Cut. Okay, let's examine this problem.
It's over there. Oh, there's that one there.
Why, there's another one?
Oh, there's that one.
See, what I'm worried about is when you get down here, it's going to, maybe okay, may not be a problem. Okay, what we can do is try to pull these stitches out.
Okay. Here. Where's the pick?
Okay, just a second. Okay, so we got that little wrinkle out. Is that one going to give us trouble? No, I think that'll, I think it'll be.
I think it's got a tiny pucker, but you won't see it.
You won't see it. Well, it depends on where it hits too. Yeah. Okay, so right now, this is what we have left to stitch. But if you look at this, well, actually, that's pretty good. There is a feature on here, but we're not going to use it today. But I'll just mention it, where sometimes when you come to the bottom of a quilt, your pattern goes way over here to the end of it. And you have all this space, and that bothers some people. That doesn't particularly bother me, but some people are trying to save fabric. So there is a feature on here called Eclipse, where you basically move your needle up to where the pattern would start, and you draw a box with it by hitting certain points at each corner down to the bottom, just off the bottom. And then it will cut out that part of the pattern that is excess from it. But we're not going to do that today because there's not going to be that much that's on here. but that is a feature of Quilt Path that you can use, and apparently that's a fairly new feature in the last couple of revisions of this program, and it's one that people really, really like. I've used it once or twice, but like I said, most of the time I don't need to, or I don't care to. So what are we going to do now? Well, it's the last one to go, so we've already lined it up. We know where the center point is and everything, but we're starting. There's the green circle. Way over there, so move your whole head over there. The machine would do it automatically for you, but this just saves you a little time. And just drop it, doesn't matter. And now you're going to hit pull bobbin on the screen.
Can I put it anywhere?
Yep, it'll go to where it wants to start. Now it's going to drop it. It's going to come up. Now you take your tail and pull up your bobbin thread, as we've done many times before, which I do not have in the shot, but you've seen it. Okay, and hit so. So. And away we go with the last bit. Are you excited that you've got your quilt up? Well, there's still another stage after this, and that's getting it off the rack. And I'm going to show you the method that I use. Do keep your eye on any slight bulges, just gently smooth them around. At this stage, we've come this far without a chuck. Let's hope we can continue. Okay, Walter's quilt is finished as far as the quilting is concerned, but he does need to cut the bobbin thread and pull it up down here. Grab your thread. Okay, now on your screen it says finish sewn, so hit that. Hit yes, and there you go. So now you can turn off the screen. So just hold down the button at the top, push it just once, and it has shut off. So now we have to get it off this machine. Now there are various ways to do this, but I'm going to show Walter the way I do, because you want to trim all of this stuff excess off of this. And if you've got a really big cutting table or whatever, it's easy enough to take the whole thing just off as it is, use your rulers and cut it. But I don't have one with that much space on it. So this is the way I do it. I know everybody has their own method. This is mine. It works, and it's what I'm going to teach Walter to do. Okay, so take off your end clamps. And I will give you the batting scissors. And I'm just going to move this out of our way. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your scissors and you're going to start here and you're going to cut close, not right on it, but just close enough to remove this. It doesn't have to be straight.
I can leave a tiny bit, right?
Yeah, you can leave a little tiny bit there. Now these are what they call batting scissors because of their shape. And you've heard us talk about these before because I bought another pair, a very fancy pair from LDH scissors, and had a lot of problem with them. They're great shears, but they're not good for cutting batting because their tips are so pointy they get caught in the fibers of the batting. Whereas you notice these ones are dull. They're rounded. Okay, now before you do anything else, you got to finish this part up. So wind this to cut off the piece that has stitching on it to separate it from the backing. So you just need to take your clamp off. You have a hard time with that, don't you? Weak hands. Wind it so you can see that piece. See where it's cut on there? Okay, just hold it up and cut on the opposite side of those stitches, like along here. And so that means the backing and that little scrap of batting will be You separate it. Yes, I know. I could take this right off and do this with my ruler and whatnot, but I don't. I do it right here. It's just me, but I'm teaching Walter my tricks. Not that he'll necessarily ever use them.
For kids.
Yeah, right. Not that he'll ever follow it, but this is my way of doing things. I find it a little bit more efficient, given the space that I have for this. Well, I wouldn't have done that, but you're cheap. You want to save that little scrap up at the end, didn't you? Throw this away.
Throw away.
Now, pick up the batting and the fabric. He's my slave now.
Pick up the batting.
Separate it from the backing, not batting. There's a piece of backing in there.
There's no backing in there. Where's the backing?
Oh, we came awfully close. Oh, no, here it is. Sorry. It came off already. Okay, didn't realize that. I was going to say, boy, we came off. Like, now that's the kind of piece that I will save. So actually, don't worry about folding it up because I'm going to have to measure it and label it and put it in my thing just so we won't worry about it. Now unroll that, the backing fabric. Quite a bit of that there. So, and then pull off the snappers. Okay, once again, I apologize for my camera work. Why are you handing them to me?
I don't know.
Put them away over there on the table. Boy. You know, it's not finished until it's all finished, you know.
Oh, I can make sure.
Okay. Fold that up. That you could use for, well, make sure. You still have to make binding, but not today.
Yeah, sure.
And you have to bind your quilt. Yeah, that's going to be another video.
Unbound the quilt.
Unbound, yeah. Quilt unbound.
Quilting unbound.
So you can set that aside. We had another piece of that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
It's mine.
Okay. Put the clamp on and take the string. Yeah, clamp it. Otherwise, this thing will unroll itself, and I'll have leader everywhere. And yeah, well, that's your cheap fabric.
It's not cheap. That was that stuff fabric.
I know. Okay.
Stuff.
Now, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take this, grab it, hit your white foot pedal, and so this will unwind from there and bring it towards you. And you're going to bring it out to about a foot, foot and a half away from the belly bar. You know, you can hold your foot down on that pedal. Here, I'll make it easy.
No.
Okay, fine. A little more, a little more. Okay, you can stop. Now, take your scissors and trim off this close to your edge without cutting the edge. And you're cutting off both the backing and the batting. And you're just going to go up till you get to the bar. Basically, you're cutting out, pretend you're cutting out paper dolls.
I don't cut out paper dolls.
Oh, you did it one time, I'm sure.
No, I didn't.
And I find if you pull it taut,
Tight.
and taunt. Taunt, isn't
Taunt.
that German for ant? My taunt? No. My tight ant? Tanta?
That's true.
Yeah, whatever. Now make sure you don't cut into my leaders, because that would be very bad for you. And then you're going to come over to this side and do the same thing. Now on this side, just to make our life easier, yeah, cut on this side of that, the extra stitching. Then we don't have to cut it again. Okay, now just wind it more off. And we're going to let the leader come right down. No, keep it coming. Keep it coming. Okay, stop. Okay, so cut up on your sides again, and then you can cut across the top. And that will free the quilt. It's like watching paint dry. May have to speed this part up.
It's like watching one of your vlogs.
Right. He's so funny. Not. We haven't heard him say go away yet. Okay, so your quilt is now free. So now we just need to clean up stuff. So we're taking that off and throw things away. And the next stage of this, but I don't know if we'll tackle that right today, is trimming up the quilt ready for binding.
Oh, yeah, do that another
We'll
day.
do it now because the poor boy's exhausted.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the end of that series, and
I'm exhausted.
and you're just just exhausted, just with your little bones. He still hasn't got it squared up though, or trimmed and squared up, and he hasn't put binding on it yet. I made him the binding. Yeah, that could be a video in itself as well. But speaking of which, we have been asking you for suggestions, and we're still open to suggestions, but we have gotten some that we're going to be working with. And one of the suggestions was somebody wants to see how you do buttonholes on your domestic machine. And of course, Walter's the expert on that. He's done them. So I think we will do a video maybe next week. It won't be a series because it's not going to take that long to do it. But Walter can talk about the ins and outs of buttonholes on garments. Or it'll probably also apply to other things because, you know, sometimes you want to make a bag that you want to, instead of a zipper
mind
with
you,
buttons.
Provided I'm using the automatic buttonholer that comes with my machine. If you have an old machine that doesn't have a buttonholer, I'm sorry, I cannot.
Wow, you're screwed on that one.
I can tell you how to do it, but it's not. You'd have to do it manually, which I'm sure is a real pain.
No, we're in the 21st century. We're using computerized machines.
But the buttonholer can be intimidating for someone that's never done one, because I mean, you kind of don't know how to do it. One lady in my sewing class totally screwed up her buttonholes, and but mainly because she didn't listen to the instructions
and didn't practice.
She
didn't take a scrap thing and try it first before she did it. That's what you said, wasn't it?
Yeah, okay. I was afraid to do a buttonhole the first time, even though I was told how to do it and everything, and even watched a demonstration of it. But what I did anyways was I took a scrap piece of fabric and I just did a bunch of buttonholes on it, because then I got a chance to play with it and decide what I liked and what I didn't like, because there are different kinds of buttonholes that you can do on most machines. Some have just your basic one, and other ones have different kinds that you can do.
Some are zippers.
And there's a default stitching pattern for the buttonhole, and I found on mine that I didn't really like the way the default was being done, so I changed the settings on my machine till I got to a setting that I liked, And that's what I use each time. And I have it written down on a little piece of paper inside where my buttonholer is as to what the settings are for my buttonholer.
So it
Um,
pays to practice, is what you're
yeah,
saying.
so it's nice to practice because then you can see what your end product's gonna be.
Yeah. So I think that'll be next week. We will put that on, but that won't be a series. That'll be a one-off kind of a thing on next week's channel. But we had other suggestions too, and I'm looking here. Um, One person said, I love the simple quilt coat idea for a series. You could combine quilting and garments. Also, tricks for putting on borders and binding. Okay, a couple of things here. Quilting, I wouldn't mind trying to do a quilted jacket or something like that. But what are we going to do with it? Walter's made jackets before, not
Yeah, I
quilted
know, but
ones.
I haven't done a quilted jacket. But I think there's a lot more to a quilted jacket than meets the eye because most of the time when you have to do a quilted jacket, I assume that you're going to want a lining in the jacket,
True.
and that's takes some work to do. So you do need a pattern for that because you need to be told how to put the lining in. I mean, other things you want an inside pocket,
Or if you want pockets on the outside.
yeah, or pockets on the
And do you want a
outside.
zipper or buttons?
And you still with quilted jackets have to set a sleeve in,
Yeah.
which putting a sleeve in is can be
Tricky.
tricky because you're on a sleeve. You're not sewing a straight line; it's curved, 3 dimensional, and you're putting two flat pieces of fabric and expecting it to be 3 dimensional, and that's tricky.
Well, that's kind of, in a sense, reminds me of what it would be like when you sew curved pieces for quilting, like Drunkard's Path or that too, because basically we sew in straight lines.
Yeah, well, one of the problems with sleeves is usually your sleeve hole is smaller than your sleeve.
Oh,
And so what you have to do is you have to do something called easing.
hmm.
So you have to try and put a bigger piece of fabric into a smaller piece of fabric, and basically you have to be careful how you do
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Well,
Otherwise, you get tucks.
okay. So we're not doing that.
Yeah.
It's that is much more involved.
Like I mean, if you've never done a garment before and you're a quilter, you're going to hate it.
Yeah.
I know you're going to hate it.
Yeah. But there are tutorials and videos out there that will have this kind of information in it. So, yeah.
I
Um,
mean, it would be best for you to buy a pattern, a clothing pattern that has an online tutorial with it, and there are lots of those around.
or just buy a pattern that doesn't have sleeves. That would work too. But anyways, I didn't want to go into a whole a major conversation about this. I've just said this is why we're not going to be doing that. Okay, but thanks for the suggestion. But with it, but no,
I've never made one.
it's beyond our scope of knowledge right now for that. Maybe someday down the road, who knows? Another thing the same person says, also tricks for putting on borders and binding. Okay, tricks. There's no real trick to putting on borders. Now, I know that there are many videos out there where they do this three measurement thing, take the average of the quilt to figure out how much border fabric you need, and then lining it up at the center of the quilt edge with the center of the binding, and then doing this and doing that. And these people that are spending all this time doing this in order that their borders won't make their quilt go wonky. They won't be wonky borders. Um, that's not my method. My method is simple. You get a strip of fabric. It doesn't have to be the exact size. If it's an outside border, we have one that's longer than the quilt, slightly longer. You put right sides together. I clip it all the way down. Some people would use pins, and you sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance down. Then you press it open and take your ruler and your rotary cutter, line the ruler up along the edge of your quilt and across the border and lob it off. That's all there is to it. And my borders aren't wonky. So I don't know what this wonky business is. that people are having problems with. But I have seen many videos about where they show doing that, and in my way of thinking, oh my God, that's too much work. So, but there's a ton of videos out there already. And so my method is not anything new and revolutionary. The other thing about doing binding. Binding can be difficult when you first get into quilting. There are many videos out there on how to do binding. That's how I learned how to do binding. There are several different methods. I have already done a video showing how I bind a quilt. It's in there somewhere. I mean, I can't, don't ask me for the link. You'll have to do a hunt. But there is a little thing that maybe a lot of people don't realize. When you're in on a person's channel, if you look at the top of the screen, you will see a magnifying glass. Now, not the box. That's for all of YouTube. But the little magnifying glass that's just below that box at the top, if you click on that, you can put in a search term for just that channel. And if that word is in the title or whatever in the metadata, that's to connect it to the YouTube channel, you might be able to find a video that, for you're looking for something. I was just using that today because I was trying to look up something in a certain channel. So that's a little thing there that I have a feeling a lot of people don't know that feature is there. But it's not the main box, the main search box on a YouTube. That'll take you through all of YouTube. It's just below it where it's got, playlist, community tab, things like that. And you'll see a little magnifying glass. Click on that and you can do a search within that YouTube channel. So that's probably your best bet for that. I don't feel that I need to spend time doing borders and binding again when there's already tons of things out there. And like I said, my method works for me. Lob it off. Another person, looking forward to hearing where you're going in the US. Does it involve a star? We all know you love stars, Stephen. At first, this confused me. Involves a star. And then I thought about it. Missouri Star Quilt Company. So that's what. No, it doesn't involve that. We've already revealed the secret. We're going to Ohio. We're going to Amish country for a few days in around the Berlin, Ohio area. We're going to do some quilt shopping and whatnot. And then we're going to go up closer to Cleveland where Stephanie is located. She lives outside of Cleveland, and we're going to visit her and do some shopping maybe with her in that area and that kind of thing. Originally, it was a secret because we were going to surprise Stephanie. But plans changed because Stephanie decided she wasn't going to be home that day.
And one of the reasons we've picked to go to Berlin is that Steve is teaching at a retreat that Stephanie's hosting in Berlin next April. And we thought we'd go down and scout the area out type of thing and just, have a look around. And we're staying in the hotel where the retreat's going to be. And just to get a feel of what the area is like and stuff like that. And it's also a time of the year that we often take a little road trip for a couple of days. So we thought we'd do it this way, just it sort of like gets us acclimatized to where we're going.
It allows us to see the facilities that I'll be teaching in too. So because I have some ideas in my head for how I will teach this pattern there as well, and might involve some, big screen things. I don't know yet, but I want to check out the facility so I can get a feel for what I can do and what I can't manage to do there with all of that. So yeah, but we're going to see Stephanie, and we've seen Stephanie before, but
yeah, I know.
But we always like to get together when we can, and we're 6 hours away from her, so it's not that far, but it's far enough that you have to plan for it. I'm a little disappointed that I'm not going to be able to pull off the surprise that we were going to do, because we were going to show up on her doorstep during a sewing with Stephanie and Stephen.
She may be relieved because...
Yeah, she might be, I don't know. But anyways.
Maybe she had a feeling something was up.
Yeah, I have a feeling she did. But I still have another surprise for her. I'm not going to say anything more. I'm not out of surprises. So that's the whole US thing. going on. Now another suggestion. I got hiccups. How about doing a printer series from start to finish on making the figures that are so amazing? Okay, they're talking about my 3D printer. Well, I have shown that kind of thing in bits and pieces. And it's not something that makes good watching unless you're into something that'll hypnotize you. There are tons of videos on YouTube where people show time-lapsed photography of things they've been creating on their printers, which are kind of fun to watch in some way because they're they're all fast forward. Because a print on a 3D printer can take anything from an hour to a week. Yeah, literally to print. And the ones that I do usually take quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, you usually do a lot of your prints are like 24 hours or
Yeah, at
something like
least
that.
that. So the more
Yeah, so
elaborate
do you want
ones.
to watch for 24 hours?
24 hours, yeah. Yeah. And unless you have a 3D printer, it won't mean a lot to you either. So, thanks for the inquiry about it. But again, that's not something that I could really make a series on. And there are tons of videos that'll take you from
Yeah,
beginning
I
to
know
end.
if you look up 3D printing on YouTube, you'll see lots and lots of videos that you can
Thousands of
see
them.
see people that have done like time lapse ones and stuff like that that you can have a look at. And one 3D printer is pretty much the same as the other 3D printer. Some are a little bit more elaborate than others, but
Yeah. And then someone else asked, I'd like to see, I'm having trouble reading this because it got cut off and it written on the next page. I'd like to see different options for straight line quilting. Well, there's horizontal, vertical, diagonal. I'm not really sure what this person has in mind. Straight line quilting is what it says it is. It's straight lines. Usually use a walking foot. So really, I mean, you can go around, you could echo, straight lines around something. Like if you did applique on a quilt, you can echo around that with straight lines or a block. You can do
unless they're talking about the kind of thing that they see at quilt shows.
I didn't ask you anything, echo, be
You
quiet.
said echo around.
Oh, yeah, that's what. So what would you
I
say?
mean, unless they're talking about the kinds of things they see in quilt shows where they see like really tiny thin lines, and you haven't really done that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have.
Oh.
You just saw a quilt this morning where I did that.
No, no, no. I meant the ones that are so thin they're like
Well, yeah, they call that
pencil
matchstick
matchstick.
matchstick quilting. Yeah, and it's just straight line too. It's just there's a lot of them and it's only this far apart. And a lot of people will do this kind of quilting on a domestic machine with a walking foot. But it's really doesn't constitute a series, I don't think, because I just did it. I told you. It's basically that. I'm not being facetious or sarcastic. It is straight line quilting. It's either vertical, horizontal, diagonal, or a mixture of those in some form. Or going around and around and around. Like you can do a straight line spiral. I have done that. That's not hard to do. But there's really nothing there that I could develop. And now, if you're talking about also doing it with ruler foot quilting, I'm not an expert. I tried ruler foot quilting. I'm not a fan of it. Didn't do it for very well because I was doing it on a domestic machine. I can do ruler foot quilting on Lucey too. I've tried a little bit as a test. Not a fan. Not a fan of doing it at
You
all.
like to use the
I
automated
like to
system.
use the computer. That's why I have it. So thank you for the suggestion, but I really, unless you can give me
We're
more
not
details,
into free motion.
yeah, we're not into free motion. Um, Another person wrote, this series on quilting has been very interesting. Could a series be developed for rulers and how to use them? I just bought another one this week. Okay, well, that's what I was saying. No. And okay, because I'm not an expert. I'm not even close to being an expert with rulers. I have a pile of them when I first got into quilting, and that I bought rulers, which a lot of people do, because in my mind, I'm thinking, Oh, I'm not good enough to do free motion, with all that stuff move. But the rulers would be okay because essentially I just have to follow the ruler and let it go. Yeah, no, there's more to it than that. And as I said, it can be done on a long arm as well. And no, I am not. I don't want to do it enough that I would practice to become proficient at it. Like Walter said, I like to use the computer. That's my forte, is using the technology with it. But having said that, there are tons of videos on YouTube for ruler foot quilting. Just do a search and you'll find all kinds of things. And those people, many of them on there are experts. They do this for a living. They know exactly what they're doing and can show you wonderful things and give you tips and tricks about that. And just one word, it probably doesn't need to be said, but maybe it does, because some people try this and it's dangerous. You cannot do ruler foot quilting using your domestic machine with one of your feet and one of your cutting rulers. You can't do that. In fact, it's dangerous to try something like that. You need a ruler that is built for ruler foot quilting. They're usually about a quarter of an inch thick of acrylic. And there's a special foot, a ruler foot quilt, that has a built up shank around the bottom of it that rests up against that ruler. And the danger is, if you don't have either one of those or whatever, you'll slide underneath the ruler and your needle will hit the ruler and that'll smash the ruler, or it'll smash your needle, or it'll smash your fingers, or it'll smash your face with
Yeah, they could
pieces,
bust a needle. It could
shrapnel.
get into your eyes or something like that.
So please don't ever attempt to do that. Don't be one of these people that goes out and buys a foot that's not designed for an embroidery machine to put lovely embroidered designs on the bottom of your rope bowl. Don't try attempting these hacks for ruler foot quilting. That's even more dangerous.
You know, I mean, make sure you have the proper equipment to do ruler foot quilting.
Yeah.
If you're going to do ruler foot quilting. Don't try and make up something yourself.
And that may seem obvious, but it's not. I have seen
people try to cheap
try
out
and do
and
it.
do
Yep.
stuff
No.
less expensive and stuff like that. No, you need to do it the right way.
Yep. Yep. And if anybody turns around and say, I do it all the time without any of that stuff, I'm going to say you're an idiot.
Yeah, well, we've heard lots of things where people say, "Oh, I do it this way, and it works for me, and I haven't had any problems at all." And then about 5 minutes later, you hear, "Oh yeah, I smashed my needle, I
Yeah.
smashed my ruler, I did this or I did that," and no, it's not been all great either. It could be dangerous.
I mean, except that there are limitations to these machines. And don't be trying to think too far outside of the box with other hacks. Okay? It's one thing to be creative, it's another thing to be stupid. Okay? And these are powerful machines. Your embroidery machine, your sewing machine, your long arm, these are powerful and expensive machines. It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye or breaks their machine, or both. Okay, so those were some of the thoughts that came through. Now, we've had quite a few people want us to do a series on serger and cover stitch machines, so we are going to develop something like that. However, there's a limitation to what we can do. We can only show you what we've used them for. Now, Walter's will be more on garment sewing. Mine are going to be more on possibly home decor.
And for me, I haven't really used it to the full extent because I've used it on.
Nor myself.
There are many uses for a serger, but I don't really cover all of those.
No, but we will start off with talking about what is a serger, what is a cover stitch machine, what do they look like, why are they different from a domestic sewing machine,
Why would you want to use them?
why would you want one. We'll talk about how much these suckers cost, the benefits of, the newfangled ones, the computerized ones, the ones that have the air threading system to it. We'll do that, and then we'll show you some of the things that we can do. Walter will show you what he uses it for. I will show you probably I'm thinking of actually doing something that shows how you can combine using your embroidery machine and your serger for making really fancy napkins, which I've only done this about once or twice, so I may have to spend a little bit of time with it. But there's a thing called cut work, which you can do a simulation of cut work. Cut work is basically special needles that you can buy for your sewing machine that cut away the fabric as you are for putting a little applique piece on a corner. You know those fancy napkins you see, linen napkins that have the lacy corners on
The
them?
doily like
Yeah,
corners. Yeah.
doily like, like old lady hankies, kind of thing. Well, there is a thing you can do that with your embroidery machine. It doesn't actually cut fabric, but and I have done it. So I might combine that in the tail end of the series, showing you how you can use those two machines together to create like really fancy napkins that might be great for a gift for somebody or for, yourself when you want to get real fancy at a dinner party or something like that. These are thoughts. All of these are up here. They haven't been committed to paper yet. So I have to sit down and plan all this. So not sure when this series will start. I think we'll start next week. It'll buy me some time with the buttonhole business, but then maybe move into the serger cover stitch series. We'll see. Lots of things to plan and do. Okay, but if you have other ideas, and I hope nobody thinks that I was picking on them when I pulled out those ideas and I wasn't poo-pawing them. They're legitimate concerns, but we have to be reasonable and work within the confines of our own knowledge and experience because we're not going to pretend that we're experts on something when we're not with it.
I
We're
mean,
always
we do
learning.
certain things that are sewing related, but I mean, I don't do all kinds of things. I mean, I've done a few different
Mm-hmm.
things, but I haven't done a lot of repeats.
No. So that, and oh yeah, there was one other thing which I've been kind of curious about because I've never really done it. But several people also were talking about doing postcards using your embroidery machine. And there are files you can buy. They're really inexpensive from like OESD or things like that. And you can make these fabric postcards in your embroidery machine. You can do them on a domestic machine too. You're just not using the embroidery features. You can use your decorative stitches. So I might explore that down the road as well, as its own little mini series or something like that. We'll see. So we're getting ideas from you, and that's the important part. So keep them coming. Keep them coming. I'm making a list. I'm checking it twice. Okay. All right. So 1 week from this Saturday coming, July 13th, pop up sew day. And yeah, I think that's about it for today. So anything you want to add?
Nope, that's about it.
Final thoughts? No? Okay. So happy 4th of July for you Americans. And I know you're having a long weekend probably and everything like that. So have a good one. And we'll see everybody next time. Bye for now.
Bye for now.